If you live on a boat and need a surgical procedure, there's a lot to plan for, even more than when you live on land. Hi there, I'm Carolyn Sherlock, and on this episode of the Boat Galley podcast, I'll share what we did when Dave had a hip replacement and give you some tips to plan for a smooth recovery yourself. Now, before we dive in, let's have a quick note about the Boat Galley's Smarter Cruising Guides. These aren't traditional cruising guides with pages of text. They're quick reference guides that make it easy to find exactly what you need, fast. Want to know which anchorages offer protection from the north? Done. Need to know if there's a spot to walk the dog? Done. We include that too. Whether you're cruising the ICW, Bahamas, the Chesapeake, or the Florida Keys, our guides are designed to help you plan smarter and cruise with confidence. There's a link in the show notes to check them out. So, how do you manage surgery when you live on a boat? Or really, how do you manage the recovery from surgery? Back in 2020, Dave had to have his hip replaced. He'd been having trouble with it for a while, and we'd postponed the surgery as long as we could. But eventually, there was no avoiding it. When you live aboard full time, you have to think about how the recovery is going to work, because you can't just walk out of the hospital and climb back aboard the boat, even if you're at a dock. I talked to Dave's doctor and explained our situation. We'd need to rent a place ashore, so I needed a realistic recovery timeline, not just the best case scenario. Doctors always give an optimistic answer, which is fine in normal situations, but when you've got logistics to arrange, you need the full picture. The doctor, who happened to be a boater himself, said that while it might be possible for Dave to return to the boat in a month, 2 months was a much safer bet given his age and general health. Now, you'll find out more about it later. We ended up actually being 5 months off the boat. Think about this as you are trying to plan your things yourself. What would you do if the time got extended? Now, we had to talk about the timing. Dave's schedule was scheduled for August 11th, right at the beginning of peak hurricane season in the Florida Keys. August 15th to October 15th are the peak times. We didn't want to be trying to hurricane prep the boat while Dave was recovering from major surgery. So we decided to haul the boat out and put her on the hard a week before surgery. We'd leave her there for the remainder of the hurricane season. That's the safest option during hurricane season. Put it on the hard if you've got a good location. Since we wouldn't be living aboard anyways, it made a lot of sense. Barefoot Gal needed a bottom job, so we rolled it all into the same haul out. And since that year was forecast to be an extremely active hurricane season, we decided that we would leave her on the hard through the end of October, just to have a little bit of safe bet. Next came the challenge of finding a place to live. Furnished rentals in the Keys aren't easy to come by for long term, and they definitely aren't cheap. Put the word out on Facebook, and fortunately got several good leads that way. Now, while we had budgeted for the haul out and the bottom job, we hadn't planned on paying for extended storage and rental housing. That's where having an emergency fund came in. And it's a big takeaway. When you're living on a boat, you need an emergency fund. It doesn't matter if it's medical, mechanical, family related. Unexpected expenses happen, and you don't want to be caught off guard. We were lucky that we had time to plan for the surgery. But even if something came up suddenly, the same basic steps would apply. First, get a clear and honest estimate from your doctor about how long recovery will take before you can live aboard again. Consider that the doctor may not really understand what living aboard is like, and think through it yourself of how recovered you'd have to be in order to realistically live on the boat. And then think about, would you need to be at a marina, at a dock, or could you be at anchor or mooring? Secondly, figure out where your boat will be safest while you're away. Get all of that straightened out. Then find a place to live ashore that will meet your needs. Once those pieces are in place, you can focus on the healing. Now, just to follow up, Dave's surgery ended up being moved up to mid-July, but we still went ahead with the plan that we would haul out through the end of October. We ended up in that apartment actually until mid-December, 5 months instead of the 2 we had first planned on. Now, some of that was due to extra boat work that we hadn't expected. But the reality is, Dave probably could have moved back aboard after 4 months, not 2. Even the 4 months would have been tough. 5 months was a lot better. Biggest issues for him were getting in and out of the dinghy and navigating the deck safely. Despite what the doctor said, there is no way we could have moved back aboard after 2 months. And that's the thing that you have to be considering yourself. We weren't exactly thrilled about the whole situation, but getting Dave's walking back to being without pain was really key. And that made all of our life on board better. So it was a good use of our COVID time. I mean, everything was locked down then. Okay. Thanks for listening to the Boat Galley podcast. I hope that you learned something about that. I hope you actually never need to have surgery. But if you do, you need to be figuring this stuff out, and maybe that'll help you. Please be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode, and tell your friends about us. Thanks.